KB in a lab environment. So just to show you, it's the usual lab environment that some of you might have already seen from previous training sessions. I'm using a slice that we haven't really used before, and my colleague is delivering a training session in parallel. So I had to kind of resort to using this set. I did a quick trial run earlier on, and it seems to work okay, but one of the servers is a bit slow. Still think we can complete the whole exercise in an hour. So what we have here is just two servers. As you can see, the first one is a media repository with a recording platform all in one, and a second server with just the recording platform. And we want to try exercising, upgrading the system to the latest GA release. And once you've tried it a couple of times, you'll find that it's actually quite logical and straightforward. There's nothing to it. Obviously, in the real world, with larger customer environments, you probably have to plan a bit better. But this is just to give us the concept and the workflow. So two servers, all in one, plus a recorder. And right now, I made some test calls just to be sure that I can record on both. And you can see that I have recording happening on my secondary recorder server and some happening on the all-in-one. Just 11 calls. And we're going to test the migration process, the upgrade process to get it up to the latest release. So it's configured for Cisco. The UC platform you integrated with should not matter with the workflow we're going to carry out. Obviously, some UC platforms require some additional components, like proxy servers or Skype. If you've gone through the Skype training with us, you know that there are some additional Verba platforms or components that we have to also upgrade. We're not really going to address this as part of this training. So all we're doing is upgrading two systems, two servers. From the About screen, you can see that the version we're currently on is 9.6.13, build 6790. And we want to take it up to the latest GA release, which I found on the support site earlier on this week. I hope it hasn't updated since, but it's currently on version, the latest release is on 9.6.15. And we want to exercise going through this upgrade. So the KB I kind of shared with you in the chat is the main one I'm focusing on. It kind of tells you some of the background, what to look out for, how to plan it, high level in English rather than technical steps. But it's giving us the workflow. And from what I can ascertain and what I've tried out is basically we need to make sure that we have a backup of the Verba database before we actually prepare this upgrade process. Reason for that is we want to ensure that if things go wrong, we can revert back. We can revert the system back. It tells us to back up existing servers and verify server and OS compatibility. That's really going to be applicable if you're kind of really going for a major upgrade, maybe from a release 8, for example, to the latest release 9. So you have to kind of factor in whether the existing server from an operating system specification can handle what you want to upgrade to. Then it tells us that we essentially uninstalling the existing system and installing the new Verba software. So one key note about this is when we do the uninstallation, we're not removing the database. The uninstallation process does not remove the Verba database. And the logic is when you download the latest software kit, run the installation, you are connecting it to the existing database, which will perform any schema updates that are required. That's essentially the main thing to note. Other factors, it tells us that they've put some enhancements since version 9.4 related to database performance improvements. This is the partitions, the table partitions it creates to kind of improve the performance. So it tells us that we need to kind of factor in some additional time if we are upgrading from a release that's earlier than 9.3, because it's going to have to kind of take care of these partitions. And it gives us a rough calculation to tell us that we need to factor in 30 minutes for every million records. It gives us a simple query to run, to do a count, so that we can estimate how likely it is to take to migrate the database schema. There are some steps here related to making sure that your recovery model is set to simple. That's the SQL database recovery model, set to simple. It seems to recommend that during the upgrade process. And it also tells us to make sure that the SQL Server agent is set to automatic, except when using SQL Express Edition. And as it happens, that's what we have in our lab, so we're not going to be able to see that. But that's something it tells us to look out for. It tells us to optionally rebuild the indexes on the database tables if you have more than 1 million records, and it gives us the script, which we can download from this link here. Now, I've only got a handful of calls, so I'm not going to go through that exercise. Essentially, what you want to be doing is really covering your back. You want to be sure that the customer has taken care of required backups in case things go south on you and you have to restore the system back to the previous version. So generally, the safest and easiest way is to make sure you do it through VM. Take snapshots of the servers before you start. But in essence, if you have the initial installation kit and you have a backup of the database, and you know where all the moving parts are related to certificates, for example, TLS certificates, there's nothing stopping you from being able to revert the database back to the restore point and running the original installation kit, starting the process again to recover the system if something goes wrong with your VM backups. But typically, we'd leave that to the customer to kind of back up all the servers before we start. It tells us to make a note of the current active Verba services. So that's some pre-upgrade steps you might need to take to make sure you know what is actually running on each server. You will see why that's important when we go through the exercise. It also recommends that we stop all the Verba services. Now, I've tried it without stopping the services, to be honest with you, and I've seen it work also. So I would go with what they recommend here, so I will stop the services. It tells us to check the storage targets. Where is the media folder or the storage targets? Are they on the C drive? You know, one of the options when we configure the upload could be on the local media repository. It wants us to check these parameters because potentially if we're uninstalling, we are effectively going to be removing this whole Verba directory from program files. So we want to be sure that our storage targets, where the calls are on some kind of location that's not going to be touched by the uninstall process. That's the logic here. Tells us to optionally make a copy of the log folders to an external location on the servers. Optionally make a copy of the web app resources related to any branding or web application customization. I mean, we've all probably seen how small the Verba folder is in terms of size when we install it. There's nothing preventing you from just backing up this whole Verba folder rather than deciding on what to back up from the folder. It's generally not going to be more than 2 gigs in size. So you could back the whole lot and save yourself the trouble of trying to work out what to back up, just to give you extra peace of mind. It tells us to back up the server registry settings, and that's a useful one. Gives you an opportunity to go and check what was configured previously, especially in relation to TLS certificates. I find that very useful, so I can check the thumbprints of what certs were in use. Ideally, you want to be familiar with all these items before you start to avoid running into problems. And then it tells us to kind of go through the process of the uninstall, which is basically going to the control panel, add remove programs, and removing the Verba software. Then starting the new installation with the new kit. Tells us what we need to do for the service activation, the change configuration settings, synchronizing the settings that are different between the registry and the database. Walks us through all of that. And it gives us some rollback suggestions. So it's kind of a simple workflow. So just to illustrate it, I thought we'll go through this and I'll do it one server at a time, because I want to try and test out the capability of continuing to record, so minimizing downtime to no downtime potentially, keeping one server active and recording whilst I perform the steps. So I'm going to connect to the two servers here. So remember, 16 is the all-in-one, 17 is the record only. And what do we want to do? So the first thing we want to do is be sure to take a database backup. 16. Sorry, that's 16 here. So I'm going to create a folder here. I'll call it backup. I'll start backing up certain key items. So one of the key ones I want to take is the regedit. You'll notice that you have all your Verba settings under HKey local machine software Verba. I'm going to export those to my backup folder. Export Verba, just so I have something to look back at in case I need it. I'm connecting to the database to kind of take a backup just in case I need to revert back. And I'll put 25th November, pin 16. That will make sense to me. That's my backup point. So as you can see, it doesn't take long when you only have a handful of calls. Okay, so we got the database backup, we got the registry backup. You want to ideally eyeball the certificates. Make sure you're familiar with the certificates in use. Now, as you can probably gather, the ones here are the ones generated by Verba, media repository. So I have my server set here, and I have my root set on the primary server, and that's just purely because we opted to use the Verba certificates. Use Verba as the certificate authority to generate these sets. Typically, if this was a customer environment, the sets you'll see here are the customer provided sets. So the uninstallation is not going to remove these sets for us. These will remain in place. Any certs used for encryption will also remain in place. The other thing you probably will note is the public cert and the private key used to secure the web application, the Tomcat certificate essentially. Those files do not get removed either. So just make sure you're comfortable, you know where they are. And yeah, we're going to reuse those. So we're not going to create any new certs in this process. One thing you might need to be aware of is the password that was used. Now, if you don't have that, if the customer can't provide it to you, you might need to go hunting for that. Remember where we found that? Conf server. Should open it in Notepad. Under the connection details, you'll see that password is exposed here, so we can see that. So make a note of that if you're not going to back up the whole folder, because we'll need that during installation. Other things, if you cast back to doing an installation with Verba, you're going to need the administrator account. We effectively almost reinstalling the package. So you remember during the installation, it will ask us for the administrator account. So you want to be sure that you have the password for that administrator account. The Verba API account, you also want to be sure you have the password for that account before you start the process. So I think I'm pretty much ready. I've got my exports. The backups should have gone to the backup location of SQL. Comfortable with that here. And like I said, you could literally back up the whole folder if you wanted to be really safe. You could just take that whole folder, which is just 2 gigs. You could back that whole folder up in case you need anything from it. You shouldn't, but you never know. But really, the registry keys are sufficient for what we need. Okay, so next is storage location. Where the current calls are being stored. They're currently going to this folder here on a NAS. So this is going to be intact. That's not going to be touched. So I know that's all going to be there. So the main thing really is to check what services are active on my servers. So you go to each of the servers, look at the service activation tab. In fact, even better is probably to look at the service control tab. And just make sure you're familiar with the services that are running on this server, because at some point, after completing the upgrade, there are some post-upgrade steps which require us to reactivate these services. They will be disabled. So you want to be sure you know what's running. Take screenshots from each of your servers. You don't need to take the details of the config against each of those services. That's all stored in the database. But again, if you really want to be cautious, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. It's just not a requirement. Okay, so I'm going to go and kick off the uninstall on my primary server, the all-in-one. That's the one I'm going to start with. Really, if it fails there, you're probably not going to want to proceed with the upgrade on all your other platforms, your other recorders. So on my 16, go into Control Panel. Just literally going to uninstall it from the programs, and features. Now this can take a bit of time, fortunately. One thing I didn't do, I didn't stop the services like it told me to. Oops. I'm going to stop them if I haven't created a problem by kicking off the uninstallation. So note to oneself, remember to stop the services. Should still be okay, but we'll see. Incidentally, whilst all this is going on, let's see, I've lost the connection to the web interface. Put that on. Carry on. Whilst this is all happening, I can generate some new calls just to prove to you that potentially you don't have to have any loss of recording whilst you're upgrading one of the platforms. As long as you have another recorder that's online, that other recorder should still be capable of recording. So I currently have an active call happening. If I go to Program Files, Server, Media, should be able to see this active call ongoing here. So potentially there could be no loss of recording customer environments. Hang this one up. Okay, so it's generated the WAV file and the XML file. As long as the database is online, the upload process to the storage targets should also take place, probably has already. And if I was to go to the storage target, hopefully I should see that this call is there. 1453. So it's a bit confusing. Should have made a note. 1554, 1523. Sorry, it's 1520. Oh, that's the time on the server. Sorry, that's why I'm getting confused. So the call is there, managed to upload. So even though we're currently upgrading the primary server, it's still capable recording on the secondary. And I'll keep making some test calls as we're waiting for this thing to complete. Any questions so far while we're waiting for this?
No, not.
Seems really easy.
It really is, honestly. If you've been bitten by the variant upgrade process, data center migration.
I'm more familiar with V15 upgrades. I mean, I'm not doing, but I heard that it's kind of complex with so many services and so on.
Yes, yeah. That's exactly what I'm talking about when I mentioned variant. It's V15 or V11 to 15.2 or 15.1 to 15.2. We have to use a data center migration tool to perform the upgrade. We have to factor in upgrading the recorders. Generally, we're upgrading to new server platforms. It's not a what do you call it? It's not an upgrade on the existing server. There is a possibility to upgrade on the existing server, but it's so complex, and if things go wrong, the recovery time is so low that we usually
right. And actually, here we're doing on the same servers, right? I mean, we're in this case, this particular case.
Exactly.
Okay. Yep. And I think we can do it in a side servers or new servers just in case to do a quick, rollover, right?
Absolutely. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. Yeah. The only thing you have to factor in is any changes in IP addresses, host names, the location of the API URLs. I'll show you the link in a sec.
Okay.
Actually, that's completed. I'm going to uninstall Java also. Not that I have to, but might as well leave it to the new installation kit to take care of it, just in case there's any changes in the version. So yeah, just to show you the key items that you find in the reg edits. So if you were doing an upgrade and doing it on a new server, there are some settings related to the IP address of this new server. So you might have to, when you come to change configuration settings and looking for any discrepancies, you might need to just make sure that you pick the right IP address. Use the server value rather than the database values, so to speak. Somewhere in here it should copy more than just further. Just look for IP. There you go. So you can see here you got the IP address, API URL. These are some of the crucial ones to look out for. So here on this server, it's pointing to the local host. That's fine. But if you're doing it same step on a secondary server, a recorder, and your primary server is changed from TRNG Verba 16, for example, you need to make sure that you factor that in during the installation of the new kit. So everything's installed by the looks of it. I'm going to refresh the services. As you can see, all the Verba services have gone away. Going to look at the C drive just to see what's left behind. You can see that this is all there still. Now, if you follow the KB to the letter, it tells you can remove this. Back it up if you're interested in maybe keeping the logs. But potentially I can delete all this content now. I don't need it. What else? The registry. I'm going to go and check the registry on the server. Let's refresh that. You can see that most of the keys have gone away, except for the storage. It has my settings where we enabled policy-based uploading. Technically, I don't need any of this either. I can delete all of this. It's going to get it all back from the database. So all the config and the metadata for the calls are in the database. That's all cleared out now. So the registry is clear. The folder is clear where Verba was. Notice the certificates that were in use are still there. So I'm going to be able to reuse those. Notice the C drive where the Tomcat certs, public certs and private key are still there. That doesn't get removed. So I intend to reuse those also. And if you look at the database, you'll see that the database is still there too, hopefully. So our Verba database is still here. And that's what we're going to try and connect to. So potentially, if you are moving to a new set of servers, you're probably going to need to restore this database to this new SQL server, wherever it's going to be. And you're going to have to point your new installation to the location of that Verba database, if it's not going to be an installation on the existing server. Okay, so everything is there. Now the steps are to just kick off, download the latest kit. So I'm using kit 9615. It's only a minor updates compared to 13, but it illustrates the workflow sufficiently, hopefully. And you're going to see exactly the same thing you would see when you do the initial installation. So we're going to select a single server solution on Verba 16. It detects that the Java 11 runtime is missing, so we can do the same thing. Install it like we would during a new installation. Done. And now I can proceed with the installation. So I'll make some more test calls in the background just to prove that my second recorder is still capable of recording whilst all this is going on the primary. Selecting single server, same installation location. Now this is where you gotta think a bit and think, okay, well, let's say, do I want to generate new certs? Technically not. If the customer's provided you with the certs, and we know the certs never get removed, all you have to do is select the existing certs. So this is the first media repository in the solution, so I will check this box. When I click on the browse, it's a case of verifying which certs you want to use from the MMC. So this is snapshots into the MMC, Windows Certificate Store. And what you could also do is look at the backup folder, and you can verify. That's why the registry backup you took, that's where it could be useful, because you should be able to see the thumbprints of the certs that were used. Where's that gone? Just do a find. Certs. Interesting. Right down here. Did I mistake somewhere? It's normally right at the top. Oh, here it is, right in front of me. So yeah, I can verify from the backup of the registry what cert was in use if I hadn't made a note. And that's why it's useful to back up the registry, so you can see what was said before. So what I can do now is I know that the cert that was in use had a thumbprint beginning with E1, ending with 28. And if you open this installer and you see too many items here, it can be confusing. I mean, it's easy here because we only have a handful of certs. It's easy to see the issued to Verba 16, issued by Verba, was the certificate authority, and you can validate the thumbprints by looking at the registry. So I'm going to select this one. Then I have to decide on what I want to use for the CA certs. Same thing. You can guess from here which one it is. It's likely to be this one, but you can also verify it by looking at what's in here. So this one begins with 3B, ends with 1E. 3B, 1E. Select it, move on to next. So it's going to reuse those sets based on this. I'm going to select the credentials to connect to the database. We're using the SA account for this exercise. And the host name of the SQL happens to be local on this server. So notice the message here says the database verb already exists. So it's going to scan this database. As long as you haven't modified the name, it will try to upgrade the schema. So I'm going to execute the scripts. Let's close some of these.
A question, how it will take in a regular customer? I mean, here there's no call. I mean, everything is really quick. Do you have an idea? Couple of hours?
It depends on the release and the number of calls. So like it said in the KB, it said if you're migrating from a version lower than 9.3, where they introduced this feature, database partitioning, then you want to allow half an hour for every million records. But if your version that you're upgrading from starts with 9.4, potentially it's going to be very quick, even if you have millions of records. I'd say as a worst case scenario, budget for half an hour. Unfortunately, they haven't put any benchmarks, but budget for half an hour for a million. If you're on any version lower than 9.4, and if you are higher than 9.4 and you budget for half an hour, chances are you'll finish much sooner than the half an hour.
Okay, cool.
So I'm going to say yes. This setting, it's still asking me for it, even though the database, the original database, should have had that feature enabled. Still wants me to say yes here, which I do. And you can see that it didn't take long at all to actually update the schema. Move on to next. Now it wants the host name of my media repository. And it wants the Verba API, and that's why it's important to actually have the Verba API account. Now, if I just click test connection, you're going to see this message. And don't be alarmed by that. That's kind of typical behavior when you're doing a reinstallation or an upgrade. It says cannot connect to the Verba media repository, reason unable to connect to the remote server. That can confuse you. It's one of those things, because this is the first media repository, it's a reinstallation, we have to skip this API user test because this node is the first media repository, as it tells us here. So I'm skipping that, and I'm not going to be alarmed by this message that you see here. So keep that one in mind. Skip it and move on to the next one. But I did actually put the Verba password, the Verba API password in here. I'm going to test the HTTP connection. And another decision-making step we have to do. Okay, do we want to create new sets or do we want to use the existing? We want to use the existing. And those should be on the C drive. So here's my public set. And here's my private key. And remember, we got the password, if we didn't know it, from the Tomcat conf server XML file. So I'm going to put that in the way it was. Test the connection to the storage management. Next, select the IP. Next, I had the time zone set to GB. Next, install. Now, whilst that's happening, I've had a call ongoing. And see what that call looks like. So it's still active, should be. Yeah, so you can see my ongoing call. If I hang this one up, should still process it. So potentially, ideally, it's nice to actually have a window where the customer's not using the system at all, a weekend, evening. But in certain situations where you have 24/7 operations, there might be a need to keep at least some recorders online whilst you gradually upgrading the system. Okay, so we'll wait for this to finish. Just make some more calls here. So we've got 20 minutes. Let's see if we can do the upgrade on both servers in the next 20 minutes. Back to the KB also. See if there's anything else we need to pay attention to. Yeah, so one of the things you saw in the KB tells us to stop the services. I didn't, and it had no consequence. Should take that statement here. Useful. Okay, that's finished on the primary server. Let's run this anyway, just to see what it shows.
Just curiosity, do you know when the new release will be GA? I mean, it's what, 9.7, 10? Do you know?
You always rely on the support sites. Support.berber.com to see what the current GA release is. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, actually, currently it's 9.6. I was wondering the next one. I mean, it's going to be 9.7.
I see.
Going to be next year. Do you know?
Not 100% sure. We might find the information here somewhere. Look at the downloads. So it's still on 9.6.15, 6.9.04. That's the one we're installing. That's the GA release. I'm sure we can find it. I'm not 100% sure.
No worries.
Okay, so I'm just showing you this query just to see. So this query is effectively looking at a database view to give us a call count. Run this against the Berber database. My count's increased to 14. Remember, I've made a few calls. So these calls that were made on the secondary server have managed to insert themselves here. Do this quickly. This table here seems interesting. It seems to have the timestamp, the insert. Section by TS. Descending. Just to be sure we have the descending order. Yeah, so you can see some of the calls that I was making on the secondary server. I've managed to continue recording whilst all this was going on the primary. So let's go back to the primary now and see what things look like. Close this and open a new session, new WebEx session to this primary. So first of all, you can see right on the login page that the version is now showing 9.6.15. And that's something to be aware of. You are going to have to apply the license. So you need to make sure you have the license file before you kind of embark on this endeavor. I got it somewhere. I think it's on the desktop somewhere. License file. So take that and apply it. Again, essentially, it's the same license file. Haven't had to go to fulfillment to request another license file. As long as you have the original for the same release, should be sufficient. There might be some considerations if you're moving from a version 8 release to a version 9. As long as you're going through a minor upgrade, the same license file should be sufficient. Okay, so we have the system licensed. You can see that I don't have any problems connecting to the web interface. One thing you'll see when you try to go to your server under change configuration settings, just like you would see when you do a new installation, you will see those discrepancies between what's in the registry and what's in the database. So it does give us a recommendation. It tells us to select this second option if we're doing a reinstallation or an upgrade. But you could eyeball the differences just to kind of be extra certain that you're happy with the selection. So if I was to select this, it will use the central value. So the only discrepancy it's found, because I've used the same certs, I haven't changed anything, same IP address, same host name. The only setting it's detected that's different is the setting for the policy-based uploading, which I had set to yes previously, prior to the upgrade. So we do definitely want to go for the database value here. I'll select that. Okay, I'm going to click here. Now it's going to try and restart a whole bunch of services. But before I restart all these services, I want to show you something else. I want to save myself having to do it twice. If you go to the service activation tab, you'll notice that the services that you had running on the server will all be disabled and stopped. So part of the workflow is to actually enable these services again. That's why it tells you to take familiarize yourself with what services are running. So I'm going to activate the JTAP for Cisco. We had that running before. And the unified call recorder service here. And if you had any others, you'd have to enable them too. Okay, now when I do that and go back to change configuration settings, you're going to see that this message comes up again because now it's checking the database for the services you've enabled, and it's detected that there are some settings that have been configured in the database that are not in the registry. So all the config that we had for the JTAP, the Cisco JTAP, and the unified call recorder service, all these settings are now showing in the database, and it's detecting that those aren't in the registry. So we're going to have to do this again here. It's quite typical. So always eyeball them. Make sure you're happy with the IP addresses, the various settings you see here before you click on start. So that has to be kind of carefully considered. don't just assume that, okay, it's an upgrade, I'm going to click on this. Always depends on your scenario. Okay, and now I'm going to go for the whole Big Bang executes, which you can see here, it's going to restart the web application also. So I expect this to time out. And what I'll do is I'll just open a new session so that I know when it's ready. So now that I have all this, I've kicked off the process on the primary server. It's not quite ready yet. I'm going to move on to the secondary just to save some time and try and complete everything we need to do. On the secondary server, I'm going to start the uninstallation. Same thing. I really want to take a backup of the registry.
Question here. Can we have both servers in different releases? No issue. I mean, the secondary server is still recording if we make a call?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I did that.
Okay.
Some of the calls I was generating whilst the primary server was being upgraded, that's what I was demonstrating.
Right, but I mean, now that is that is complete. That is, I mean, but okay, cool.
Oh, I see. You mean, can the secondary still record whilst it's on a lower version?
Exactly, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think it will, but keep in mind there's a note in the KB that tells you we don't support partial upgrades. It wants you to do the whole estate basically in one go. But yeah, certainly it can still record. But
so just to be sure, I mean, once this upgrade, the primary is up and running, the secondary is not going to pick up any more calls, right? I mean, automatically, unless you force, I guess.
Let me show you. I think it will,
Okay.
to be honest with you. What I've seen should do. Okay, so we're back to. So you can look at the primary service activation. On the service activation, you should be able to see the builds of all the executables, 9615. If I click on the secondary, you can see it's all the lower builds. So let's test your theory and make a call. I've got it load balancing, so should be able to get a call happening to the secondary. Okay, well, this one's recording on the secondary, the first one. So yeah, potentially, even though we haven't upgraded the secondary yet, the secondary can still record.
Wow, this is cool.
Yeah,
okay.
I like it. Does make life easier, doesn't it? It gives you options.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, so just because I'm aware that we're coming up to the hour, I'm going to kick off the uninstallation on the secondary, just to try and save some time. Edge export, just in case I need it. Control panel. Just look for the Verbal Collaboration Compliance Platform and uninstall it. And what did I forget again? Stopping the services. If I had stopped the services and disabled them, I probably wouldn't have had this message. But this is so forgiving that I've done this without stopping the services and it still lets me do it. So just to save time, I'm going to go ahead and carry on anyway. But ideally, stop the services like the KB tells you to. I normally go to the services console. Look for the Verba services ones running, and I disable them and stop them before I actually start the uninstallation. That's what I should have done, but once again, I didn't. Okay, so let's go back and see what things look like on the primary now. So first of all, if I click on change configuration settings, are there going to be any discrepancies showing? Hopefully not. Everything takes me straight to the nodes. Look at the service control tab and make sure that your services are running. Although I kind of push the config, I look at the configuration tasks, I still need to go and start the services. So remember to do that. So I'm going to start the Verba Cisco JTAPI service. Okay. Could be a delay or could be a problem. Let's see. Thankfully, it was just a delay. The system can be slow. Its responses sometimes. Okay, the Unified Call Recorder service is also running. So once the SIP trunk status is back in service, I've only just restarted these services, I should be able to start recording on my primary. So we'll give that a bit of time. If I try to make a call now, redial, let's see where this goes. Okay, funny enough, that status, SIP trunk status recovered quite quick because I have a call on the primary now. You want to verify that you can replay these new calls. 2:55, going by my time. Remember, I set mine to GB, even though the server is in Central European time. Just prove that your recent call plays. Now, it hasn't quite uploaded to the storage targets. So why does this one play? Because it's technically on the... Just wait for that. Okay, so that's uploaded. No problems so far. And notice how you can even play calls from the secondary, even though I've just kicked off the uninstallation, because it doesn't care about the secondary. The call's already been consolidated to the database and it's on the storage targets. So even though the secondary is being upgraded, it doesn't, there's no call buffer, so to speak, like we have with the variant recorder, for example. So in the variant recorder, you need the call to be on the call buffer, available to replay the call. If it's not on the call buffer, it needs to be in the archive, central archive. Here, as long as it's on the storage target we've configured and it's in the database, we can replay it whilst the secondary is being upgraded. So the secondary should have finished, and I'm going to do exactly the same steps, essentially. So I'll try and do this as quickly as possible. First, all my Verba services have gone, so I'm confident I'm ready to reinstall. Just check the program files. I'm going to delete everything under Verba, and I'm going to check the registry also. Fresh, no Verba settings. So I'm happy that everything has been removed. I'm going to go for the new installation kit 9615 and run the installer just like we did. Same considerations. So this is going to be a recording server without media repository. Start the installation. I have a record from here that tells me what certificates I was using before. So here I can see the API set. Notice how we don't see the CA certs on the secondary, and that's typical behavior. That's not a problem. It's quite typical not to actually have the CA cert here. In fact, we don't even see the CA cert on the media repository if the certs used are customer generated certs. So we only see the CA cert on the primary server when Verba is acting as the certificate authority. So quickly do that. Recording server. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to select the existing one. You can see here the name 20 CE. 20 CE. Easy to spot. Should 2, Verba 17. Select this one. Next. Same options. Credentials for the database. The database is not local here, so I need to give it the location of the database, which is on the primary server. Sorry guys, I appreciate we've come up to the hour. If you need to drop, that's fine. I'm recording the session so you can review any last parts, but I'll just finish off for anybody who can stay. The Verba web application hostname and the Verba API here. Test the connection. IP address and this one hopefully should be a bit quicker than the first one. Any questions while we're waiting for this to complete?
No, it's clear. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Yusuf.
Hey, you're welcome. No problem. My pleasure. So hopefully it gives you a bit more confidence if you hadn't wondered, what the upgrade involves in Verba. It's much easier. What you might have been used to. The other products. Of course, this is an upgrade. There is something completely different called migration, which we're not really covering, but there is a migration process from a Verint 15.1 to a Verba. That's a completely different topic. Maybe we'll address it on a different session, what the options are there.
That sounds very interesting.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, it's only available for compliance customers, obviously, and there are some restrictions, limitations, I should say, not restrictions. If you have encryption, data at rest encryption on the source 15.1 system or 11 system, then it can't be used. But yeah, there is a migration path from a 15.1 Verint system, or even the 11 system, legacy eWare based system. So that's finished. I'm just going to quickly go back and complete the steps on the secondary. So I'm expecting to see same things here on the change configuration settings. It's detected some differences. Again, I'm satisfied that this is the option to select. Now here is the API URL. If you wanted to change to a different, if you moved your primary server to a different hostname, you'd probably see the original hostname in the database and the updated hostname that you selected during installation. So you might have to pick a mix here. So there's no rule that says you have to select all the same settings. In this case, it's going to be all the central values. Okay. Same thing, go to the service control, service activation, and enable the services. Notice how the versions are showing 9.6.15 now. There's the Verba Unified Call Recorder service. Show the differences. And similarly, we want to select this option. Use central values. Click here one final time. It's bound to come up with this warning, as you've probably seen when you do a new installation. We have to go to the service control and start these services. Okay, quick test just to be sure everything's still okay. So, okay, so this call is on 17. I got lucky here. First one got recorded on the one I just upgraded. Make another call. It's recording on 16. So I've just proved that I can still make new calls after the upgrade is complete on both of my recorders. Just need to wait for them to upload. So this one plays. And this one should play soon. Well, it does play because it's on the media repository. It's an all-in-one, essentially. Refresh that. This one way slow. But that's the logic of upgrading, Bob, and I hope you found the session useful. Well, guys, that's all I had. So unless you have any questions, I won't keep you any longer. There we go. All completed. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Hope you found it useful. Any questions, you know where to find me. Chat soon.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.